One of my favorite aspects of being part of an active church is the fellowship that we experience together. Now, if I'm honest, one of the things that I like the most about that is that we share meals together. And of course, it's not just about the food itself. It's about what eating together brings and what comes as a result of that. Meaning eating meals gives a group of people something physical to do, which is unifying in and of itself. It gives us something to enjoy together, meaning eating food that is good. It builds positive feelings and even good memories. It disarms us so we can bring our guard down because we kind of have something to do that we're doing together. And eating meals together even works as an icebreaker to facilitate casual conversation, especially when that food is good, but even when it's really not good. Most importantly, eating a meal with other Christians turns us, at least for those few moments, into the kind of family that God has designed the church to be, a family that enjoys their time together and hopefully leads to greater fellowship in the future. Because if you know what it's like to be part of a healthy church, or if you're familiar with the model of the church that we find in the New Testament, you would know that the church really is like a family. I was reminded of this reality recently when I was talking to a missionary friend of mine, because as he described his church on the mission field in South America, he happily described a group of people that cared for each other, that were affectionate toward one another, and that really wanted to be together. That's not only how Jesus wanted the church to be, that's how he started the church, like a family. Well, think about it. Jesus, the founder of Christianity and the church, was a family man. Not only was he born into a family and participated in family events for most of his life with his parents and his brothers, but in the end, as he hung on the cross with his arms outstretched, with his last few breaths, he asked for his mother to be taken care of by, you could say, one of his new family members, John. And Jesus taught on the importance of family and marriage, which is the foundation of the family as well. One of the most popular passages that we could read would be Mark chapter 10, verse 6 through 9, that says this. Jesus said, "But from the beginning of creation, God made them male and female. Therefore, a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What therefore God has joined together, let no man separate." But Jesus did not just teach about the importance of the family and marriage. He endorsed it publicly and actively also. To the point that his very first public appearance, at least after his public baptism, was his miracle at a wedding where he attended with his family and his disciples. And Jesus was not just a bystander at this wedding. He got involved and he began serving refreshments. But then in another passage in John chapter 19, when Jesus gave his disciple John the responsibility of caring for his mother, we get a hint about what kind of family relationship Jesus had with his disciples, because the writer uses the phrase, the disciple whom he loved. This is because Jesus did not just focus on caring for his physical family, but he essentially welcomed all of his followers into his family as well. In fact, here's the words that he said, "For whoever does the will of God is the same as my brother and my sister and my mother." Also, Jesus ran his ministry and he treated his disciples like family. As we read through the Gospels, we find at different times Jesus walked with them on trips. He rode in boats together. He reclined with them in homes. He attended feasts and celebrations with them. He taught them lessons like a father teaching his children. He allowed them to make mistakes, and then when they did, he took some time to teach them. He rescued them when they were in trouble. And my favorite part, he ate with them. Picture that. God himself in the flesh sitting there at the Last Supper with his disciples, and they're just enjoying a meal together. And Matthew describes the scene like this. As Jesus was reclining at the table with his disciples, it says, "Now as they were eating, Jesus took bread, and after blessing it, he broke it and gave it to his disciples and said, 'Take, eat, this is my body.' And he took a cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, saying, 'Drink ye all of it. For this is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink again of this fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom.'" One important detail in this account is that Jesus served The very one who was about to betray him, Judas Iscariot. He knew what was going to happen, yet he served him anyways. This is a perfect illustration of how families even care for those who they don't get along with in their family, or maybe even those who will become their enemies later on. This dynamic of Jesus's family ministry didn't just end with him. The first church, led by the apostles, also really treated each other like a family. Very soon after Jesus' ascension back into heaven that we read about in Acts chapter 2, the apostles gave the gospel to people from all over the world and invited them into the family of God. Something that, to this point, only the Jews thought that they had claims to. Then, as a result, the picture that we get from the first church is nothing short of a utopian society, if you will, that other cults have tried to mimic. They were loving on each other. They were meeting together regularly in the temple, in their homes, and they were sharing resources in a way that makes even the tightest knit family seem like sworn enemies. This is because the gospel of Jesus brings people together like nothing ever has. Then later, the apostle Paul taught this family mentality by going into churches and teaching them that they must not allow their differences to define them or to divide them. Instead, that they should seek unity by agreement in 1 Corinthians 1. He taught that in the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, that while faith and hope are important, love is really the most essential. Paul used this analogy of a human body with its many unique members that each have different functions but really serve one another to describe the church and its view of itself. The example of the first church and Paul's instructions to the churches he pastored kind of from a distance, they really give us a standard for us to obey today as a church. Lastly, the church family dynamic doesn't end with our time here on earth, because God promises that heaven will be more like a family than anything else. Another important detail of the Last Supper that we just talked about from Matthew 26 is that Jesus promised that in the end, after this current time on earth, heaven and earth will be done away with, and we'll have a new opportunity to be together. And what we read is that Jesus will once again be with his followers, and he himself will serve us. Listen to what the book of Revelation says in Revelation 19. Let us rejoice and exult and give him glory, for the marriage of the Lamb has come, and his bride has made herself ready. There will be a celebration. There will be a marriage celebration, and Christ himself will gird himself and serve us, according to Luke chapter 12. What a beautiful thought that Jesus will once again serve us who have been serving him. But this will not be because he owes us anything, but because we have nothing else to offer Jesus, who has everything. Then that same Jesus will welcome his children into a new home that has been prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Again, the family in the marriage picture. And John tells us this in Revelation chapter 21, verse 1 through 4. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. And I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, Behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people. And God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death will be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain anymore, for the former things have passed away. One writer summed all of this up by saying this, that the end goal of God's work and his mission has been and continues to be reconciled, intimate relationship with his people, his children, and the church. See, the church is a family, not by blood, but by the Spirit. If more people saw the church like a family with her fellowship and flaws, then fewer would be leaving it. If more pastors and church leaders saw it as a family, then fewer would treat it like a job or abuse her. If more church members saw the church as a family, fewer would be outsourcing the caring for each other to other pastors or deacons, or the serving of one another to a paid employee. Christian, let's go the extra mile and not just expect our church to act like a family, but to do everything we can to make it a family.